Good morning, everybody. Good morning. And thank you, everybody, for coming out to a special meeting. Appreciate that, especially on such a lovely day, which I'm sure people would rather be out enjoying that. So we'll start off with the introductions. Tom Burhan, 4th District Chair.
Wes Thompson, Slow County.
Nola Englesberger, County Public Works.
John Winstead, Ag at Large.
Wayne Chisholm, San Miguelito, Lucia Water Company.
Craig Shady.
Patricia Wilmar, Pastor of those Line Country Alliance. Large alternate.
Glenn Mans, Assistant DSD.
Kate Valentine, County Public Works. Katie Franco, County Public Works.
Peter Brown, Oceanos DSD.
Cynthia Luciano, Christine Mulholland, Environmental at Large.
David Chipking, Environment at Large.
I guess the environment is large.
Ron Mora, RCD.
Greg Grable, Slow County Cattlemen's Association.
Alan Zuckworth, District 5.
Paul Clark, Farm Bureau.
Kelly Dodd, San Miguel CSA.
Zach Mark, Oldmark County Irrigator.
Steve Carter, Slow County Farm Bureau.
Bill Walters, Development at Large.
Manny Cardone, Templeton CXC.
Matt Phillip, Golden State Water Company.
Big League, City of San Francisco. FEP, Nicole, City of Crete.
Marcia Guthrie, City of Tisland Beach.
Comic Rock, also San Luis RCD.
Andy P. San Luis Obispo City Council. Jim Henderson, that's their.
Joey.
County Public Works.
Brendan Clark, County Public Works Committee Secretary. And we have 20 for quorum. Thank you, everyone. So we go to quorum. Fourth Tuesday, is this a good time for everybody? I don't know, okay. So we have a special meeting. Yeah, that's true. Special meeting today, so we will not be doing some of our normal business, including approval of the minutes from our last meeting on June 5th. That will take place at our normally scheduled meeting the first week of September. Today, we're here to hear a presentation from Wes Thompson on proposed 2024 state water transfer and consider actions. So with no further ado, Wes, please take it away.
Thank you. Good morning, members of the Water Resources Advisory Committee. See a lot of familiar faces and a lot of new faces. As you've heard, my name is Wes Thompson. I'm a staff engineer with Slow County Flood Control Water Conservation District under the Public Works Department. For the last 8 years, I've been working to support the district in managing its state water contract. A few faces rolling in here. Welcome, everybody. I understand the purpose of the Water Resources Advisory Committee is to advise the district on policy and programs that support the district's water resources. And so I'm here to provide an update for you on some of the things we're going on with state water, namely the proposed water transfer that we are looking to take to the board for a decision on August 13th. In the last 8 years, we have formalized the State Water Subcontractors Advisory Committee. There are 11 subcontractors. I see a number of those here. Would you raise your hand if you're if you're representing whether you're staff or an appointed member of the subcontractors? Okay, great. I think there are about 8 or so of you on the Water Resources Advisory Committee, so that's fantastic. And it's great to see you here today. We have also executed 2 contract amendments with DWR to extend the contract out to 2085 for the district's long-term water supply to bring in state water. We've also recently in 2021 amended the contract to address needs for greater flexibility with managing the state water contract. There are 29 state water contractors across the state, and San Luis Obispo County is one of those. And that contract amendment, which is kind of informally known as the Water Management Tools Amendment, gives us new tools, actions that we can take to better manage the state water supply. We recently completed a joint study with CCWA to look at potential strategies that we can develop, maybe in partnership with our Central Coast partner to the south in Santa Barbara County, to better manage the supply. We both have a need for dry year supply management strategies, namely storage. That's a big one for us, so that when the water is available, we can bring it into our county and use it, put it to use. The Delta Conveyance project planning effort is underway. We are participating in the preliminary planning and permitting effort with the state and the rest of the contractors who are participating in that effort. So far, we're in the 4th year of that effort, started in 2021. And then, over the last few years, we've seen a lot of variation in the supply. We went from, even just going back to 2020, we saw the driest 3-year hydrologic condition for the state on record. So from 2020, 2021, 2022, those 3 water years, driest 3 years on record. And then on the heels of that came into 2023, wettest, one of the wettest years on record, 100% allocation for state water that year. And then also at the beginning of that year, we executed a transfer agreement with CCWA to give them 1,000 acre-feet of water in exchange for an opportunity to bring in some additional state water for the district when that need arises. So in 2024, we are at a 40% allocation. Our contract's 25,000 acre-feet. That means we have 10,000 acre-feet of new water. That's the table A water for this year, in addition to water we've gotten storage from the previous year. 2023, like I said, was a significant year. We went from basically a 5% allocation the previous year to 100% allocation. And so what are strategies that we can use to be flexible and adapt to the changing conditions? Strategies include storage, water transfers, and exchanges. Those are the 2 primary options available to us. And so in 2024, we're looking to address the risk of losing current storage to spill, also leaving potentially table A water on the table that we can't take and put somewhere. So that would just be water that would be lost this year. And then we'd like to achieve some cost recovery for the district. Both the subcontractors and the district taxpayer base that helps fund the state water contract would benefit from that. And then we'd like to be able to keep a little bit of water in storage for emergency needs, or depending on what things look like in the fall, have some options to release a little bit more water, make it available to others within the system if we think that we're going to lose some additional water, which is how things are trending. Had a phone call yesterday with DWR, and we expect to have more information on that in the fall. So today, we are here to talk a little bit about what we're doing with state water, but also just to make sure that we are aligned with the policy direction from the board, which has directed us as staff to maximize the state water contract benefit for the county and recover costs to the extent possible. So the district staff recommendation today is for the Water Resources Advisory Committee to endorse the district's policy direction to staff to put all of the state water project water available to beneficial use and recover the cost of maximizing the table A allocation benefit to the fullest extent possible. And with that, I will open it up to questions.
Yeah, thank you. In the written staff report, I didn't see any mention of the Central Coast Water Authority as a party to this agreement. Couple of linked questions. One is, are we still contractors with, rather than part of the governance of the CCWA, with just the Santa Barbara County purveyors having voting power? And then I guess the question as it relates to this item, would it lead to less water moving through the coastal branch at times in such a way that fixed costs would be imposed on those who are taking it above what they are now. If we make this agreement with the west side entities in the Central Valley, would it essentially, there are certain fixed costs relative to the operation of the coastal branch. And so would those fixed costs lead to a higher unit cost for any of the purveyors in our county? So that's kind of two questions. One is the CCWA a party to this decision, and what is our relationship with them? And then the cost about fiscal impacts to the purveyors who take it.
So I think I got your question, Eric. So CCWA would not be a party to this agreement. This is an independent action that doesn't is not directly relevant to our contract with them. We operate independently because we have a contract directly with DWR and Santa Barbara County. CCWA operates under Santa Barbara County's contract with DWR. So from a water management standpoint, we are free to act independently to the extent that the actions that we take don't cause harm to them.
Thank you. So the contract with them is mostly about Colonial Pass and treatment.
Yeah, the contract with them is for water treatment. And then that's the primary contract that we have with them. They actually have an agreement with DWR to provide O&M service to support coastal branch operations. And so we work with them from that capacity.
Good, thank you.
Okay, so your second question had to do with cost impacts to
Unit costs.
unit costs. Yeah, so unit costs in terms of like dollars per acre foot.
Right,
And so within the state water project contract, there are fixed costs, right? Costs that are independent of the water that's delivered. And for state water contract, those costs are pretty high. It's a take or pay contract system. So those fixed costs, whether the water's taken or not. So from the standpoint of the water transfer, it has no impact on the it essentially has no impact on the fixed costs. It's going to impact the variable costs, but that's because that cost is a cost factor related to the water that is delivered. For the individual subcontractors that are served by the district, the cost impact from a unit cost standpoint, that's something that that is an item for them to manage and address. And so within this proposed action, they may adjust their water delivery schedule to manage their costs, and they may take more water, they may take less water. It depends on, and for those who are here, feel free to chime in if you had anything to add that might help clarify for Eric. Greg.
Yeah, my concerns are, I look at this as two pies. We have a 15,000 acre foot pie and we have a 10,000 acre foot pie. The subcontractors are paying for a certain amount of water with a buffer so that hopefully they get it, which this year they're 1,000 acre feet short. And the unsubscribed portion is being funded by the rest of the county taxpayers that get zero benefit. And the money that was from the 2008 sale and the 2014 sale was put in the wrong account and had to be moved over because of and that money for 10 years being used for something else, it was never any interest applied to it either. So that $6.5 million got moved to the right account. If I'm all for selling the extra water, but if there's not enough buffer for the subcontractors, they shouldn't be getting water that we're saving that they're not paying for. When we spill, it's an equal percentage for everybody that's a contractor in the San Luis Reservoir because it's not big enough. And then when everybody gets 100% delivery, there's no place to put it, except if you're at Diamond Lake down in Hammond or whatever. So the state creates a problem by not having enough storage, oversells what they can deliver, shuts out the pumps, why we got 40% because of salmon. And I don't want to keep extra water there that's just going to be thrown away. If we have an opportunity to get money back, I want to know how that money is going to benefit the taxpayers who pay for it. I don't look at it as much as the district's water as I do as the unsubscribed portion that's owned by the taxpayer. And how's the taxpayer going to benefit? And if we're going to sell some and we're going to leave some buffer there and there's not enough buffer, then that needs to be sold to our subcontractors so that the taxpayers benefit on that end also until some given time. Yesterday, all I did was go back through the 2008 water banking study and all the related things. So we've had so many things that have happened from then on state water with what we thought we were going to do back then, what Sigma says we're going to do now on protecting the different basins and how they have to be managed different. Because what do we have? 22 basins in this county, 5 of them they claim have an issue. And so they all have to be handled individually and how we're gonna work all that stuff out. I want the subcontractors to have whatever they need. I want us to benefit on what we don't need. But at the end of the day, it's my feeling that the people that are being taxed on their property for the last 60 years for this state water need to be taken care of also.
Other questions for Wes? Yes, Christine.
Yes, I have a similar kind of a thought, and I was wondering about, if we're going to sell the water, currently, each one of us on our tax bill has a line for state water. That's a placeholder, we maintain that. If we're going to sell some of that water, will we see a slight decrease during the time periods that we're selling? Will we see a decrease in our tax bill? Will we, in other words, will the money be coming to the people who have been paying for that placeholder all this time? That's one question. You can take them individually, I'll throw out the other ones. Now, the west side districts were from the beginning of the state water project. Okay, let's
do the first one.
Okay, go ahead, please.
So, and I'm going to kind of also address Greg's comment. One of the things that we're trying to do with state water is make sure that the costs are tied to the benefits. So, we to the greatest extent we can do that. We'd like to be able to develop policy and management strategies that will ensure that we're headed in that direction.
Where else is the money going to go? If it doesn't come back to the taxpayers, if we sell, who's going to get that money?
I hear you. Yeah, the state water budget is massive. And just for the county alone, the cost for the unsubscribed portion of the allocation right now is about $2.5 million a year. We also have a decision forthcoming at the end of this year on whether to continue in the next phase of the planning effort for the Delta Conveyance Project. That cost alone is going to be that will cover 26 and 27, so 2 calendar years, and it could be in the $3 to $4 million range. So if the district, and that's just for that's the total district share of its cost to continue participating in that planning effort. Annually, total costs for the district are, Katie, correct me if I'm wrong here, like 6 to 7 million in that ballpark. Yeah. So, depending on how much revenue is received from this one-time transfer, that could impact the tax rate that's set next year. And so it's possible you might see a little change. It really has to do with the scale of the cost recovery revenue relative to the overall costs, ongoing costs to maintain the contract. So the answer is in short, it depends. I don't know that you'll see, I don't know what you'll see. It depends on what the board decides relative to continuing its participation in the Delta conveyance planning effort. I don't know if there are any other factors. It depends on property values. Last year, when the tax rate was set, it was reduced a little bit, but I don't know that you would have, I don't know how much that would have been reflected on your actual tax bill.
So are you saying, Wes, that there'd be downward pressure on the tax rate for the state water project? You might not see it actually go down, but it'd be less of an increase
Right.
if the sale went through,
Great point.
possibly?
Yeah, the idea is to try to keep a stable tax rate. If we can't reduce it more than, if we get these revenues in, the idea is to try to not see as much variation as we see coming from DWR to kind of temper that variation in annual costs.
But there is, Wes, to the
Yep.
subcontractors,
Mhm.
a direct cash benefit for the water they're giving up. So
There is.
with the water utility, we have a good chance of this 8.5 thousand acre feet spilling and not being able to use it, not having capacity for it. So to be able to turn that into cash for the water utility to use for CIPs or rate offsets for the ratepayers, there's lots of different ways we can use it.
Christine, I think you had a second part to your question.
Yes, I do, thank you. The West Side District, now, growing up in California and as a child in the San Joaquin Valley, I learned early on that when the state water project opened up, the West Side was told they are second-tier water receivers and they should not put in permanent crops. Well, that went by the wayside a long time ago. And then I look at Lost Hills Water District among those districts, and I could be mistaken, but I believe Resnick comes in under there, and he's already water banked way more than his share of state water over the years. And subsidizing the West Side districts that have put in far more irrigated ag than they should, as has basically the whole of California. But at that point, are we subsidizing really kind of not smart use of water by selling to people like that?
Well, let me just say that,
Well,
you want to take a shot at this?
yeah. There is, the groundwater basin in the San Joaquin Valley is going through, it's the results of its past water policies. So what's occurring is there's going to be a great reduction in the amount of irrigated agriculture in order to make the groundwater basin balanced. And there will be additional supplies, whether it's coming from the state water project, the federal project, utilized to add to the groundwater basin in order to get it into balance and to basically pay for anyone that has to over pump or whatever, they have a replenishment obligation to be able to do that. So to a certain extent, this is going to be self-correcting over the next 5 to 10 years because of the groundwater law that went into effect a few years ago. And you'll see a complete redesign and rebalance of how water is utilized in this.
Thank you, but is the purpose of this water that we're selling to all of these water districts to continue the current levels of ag, or as Resnick has said himself, he's not a farmer, he's a businessman. And if he wants to buy and sell water, he's going to buy and sell water. So are we going to sell something to people who aren't going to use it as would be beneficial to public who would be paying for it and buying it, these districts? What is the purpose of their purchase, not our sales? I get that, we want to get our money back, but who are we selling it to, for what purpose?
It's to continue their agricultural irrigation. facilities. That's what.
Continue or to increase?
No, they can't increase.
They can't.
No, they're trying to, they have reduced supplies coming from the ground. And they have reduced supplies coming from imported supplies, so they're just trying to get what they can. What it is essentially, it's a reallocation, I know, allocation is a bad word. But essentially, you're making use of all the resources instead of letting them go to the ocean. So you're trying to maximize the uses of all the resources that are within the state in order to provide food and fiber and all the other things that agriculture brings to the state. But it is it's going to be corrected because all the farmers in that area, the landowners there, all know that there's going to be a tremendous amount of reduction in irrigation. A lot of crops are going to go out of production over the next 10 to 15 years. And so there's millions of acres that will have to go fallow in order to comply with the groundwater law.
Question in the back?
Yeah, so the question comes up, then, how was the price per acre foot determined on this one? How was that negotiated?
Yeah, so we did a little research, looked at inquired about those who might be looking for water to purchase within the State Water Project Network. Several times continue to come up against this opportunity with the West Side districts, and they offered a price that was reasonable based on the what we understood to be the going rate for south of Delta transfers. There are limited options right now, particularly in this year, because there's no transfer capacity from north of the Delta to south of the Delta with under current conditions. That's not expected to change. So this looked like the best option, and the price that for the table A water is you'll notice is different than for the stored water at San Luis Reservoir. The table A water has a little bit different value to the West Side because they have more flexibility with what they can do with that water. The stored water, they have to take that this year, so they would have to deliver that from the reservoir to their service area this year. Whereas they have a little bit more options on how to manage the table A water. So the price reflects that. Yeah.
Thank you.
The other part, Wes, I think is when you all looked at the prices, the price that we're getting is $450, $440 per acre foot, the 13.5 is a little higher than what the current market is. So I think the group felt like it was beneficial to get higher rates than other water was sold. And then in terms of I know you did make some amendments to the payment. We talked about 4A, and I think it's a lot cleaner now where we split out 8.5 versus 5,000.
Great.
I think you probably already ran this by the West Side districts. I'm sure there's not gonna be a lot of retroactive changes, but what doesn't make sense to me on 4B is that we wait for the final volume to be determined before we get payment. It makes sense to me that when we sell the first 8.5, that gets paid, and the 5,000 that may or may not come later would get paid if delivered. The way it's written now, it looks like we're basically gonna give them the water and not take payment for the 8.5.
The arrangement is, just to clarify, the arrangement would be that once that water is delivered, then they would be obligated to pay within a certain amount of time. So they're not under obligation to take this water. What we're doing is we would be making that water available to them. Then there would be a process that we would work through with DWR to schedule delivery of the water. And then once they actually receive the water, that's when, once they receive the benefit, then they'd be on the hook to make the payment. So there is some lag time in there. All of this would have to occur within this year. So this is a short-term transfer, just a one-time only. And Christine, I think she brings up an interesting question for consideration is what is the county's policy on who it would make water available to, right? Whether it's municipal user or ag user or other. That's a question for the board to decide. That's a policy question for the board to decide on. But the board's gonna have to weigh in on similar questions with respect to its Nacimiento water supply as well. They're also looking to expand access to utilize surplus Nasi water when it's available to meet in-county needs. Similar questions are gonna be on the table for the board. Steve?
Yeah, I think my point was, I mean, we put it out there, we're not subsidizing Westlands or anybody else. We put it out market. And these are the people that offer to take the water at the best.
Right.
The best price.
Right.
We're not subsidizing.
We're not subsidizing,
What they do with the water.
I think that's a fair point. We're not subsidizing. In fact, if we don't take action, here's the thing, if we don't take action and the water spills, because basically, what happens in a spill event, for those who aren't familiar, it's an operational action the DWR takes to basically make room for the incoming water supply at San Luis Reservoir. So it doesn't physically spill, but what happens is they essentially reclassify the water as they're exporting more water from the delta that they're moving south from Oroville. It comes into the system south of the delta, and they start calculating, okay, we've pumped this much this month. We need to reclassify X number of acre feet. Actually, they do it on a weekly basis. And so what happens is on a weekly basis, the water essentially, it's a paper spill and the water's reclassified. And so what would happen is hang on, Eric, what would happen is this water would be made available under a different contract provision called Article 21. And it would be made available to all of those connected to the State Water Project system for $20-30 an acre foot, something like that. So, and the West Side folks would be able to benefit from that. So they would, if we're going into 2025 and this water spills, then it's a lost opportunity for us. We're gonna lose, we would lose all of that water because we don't currently have the ability to take that water and put it anywhere. So which is why we tend to keep so much of it at San Luis Reservoir. So what would happen is we'd lose that water that the districts paid for. And then they would get it at a pretty nice discount. So they're willing to pay for it now to meet current needs today because there's a time value factor in there. And so that's we are by no means subsidizing them. They would be paying us a fair, reasonable price for the water supply.
Okay.
Yep, Eric.
At the end of the last page, it says it's anticipated that a notice of exemption would be required. Would such a thing be valid if we're actually reducing the amount that would spill into the delta? And is this going to lead to more diversion to the west side as opposed to where the salmon are migrating through the delta smelt, et cetera? Is a CEQA exemption a given, or is it possible that there would need to be more actual environmental review?
Yeah, that's a great question. The CEQA exemptions are it's built into the state water code for short-term temporary transfers that are 1 year or less. They, as long as they meet other conditions that the state determines are considered a responsible transfer and comply with our contractual provisions with the state, then yes, it would receive an exemption from CEQA. And in terms of impact on the delta, this water is either water that's already past the delta, it's at San Luis Reservoir, or it's water that is already going to be moving past the delta. It's already allocated water under the water right for the district. So it won't have any impact on it'll either be water that DWR will keep north of the delta in storage at Oroville, or they'll be moving it past and they'll just pull from whatever supply is already passed to make it available to the west side to take when it works for them. So in terms of impacts on the delta operationally, it won't have any impact. But that's a good question.
Okay, perhaps one or two more questions and go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I have a question more related to the ongoing policy. So you said it's a one-time deal. So 2 years from now, you have a similar situation. You have to come back to the Board of Supervisors to do that next deal. And the other question is related more to the permanent sale.
Mhm.
Because you specifically relayed that to the master plan, how that's somehow tied to the master plan, as if there's some specific nexus there that would allow you to move forward with permanent sale, if there's something.
Let me answer your first question. I'm not sure I fully got your second question. On the first question, would have any, right now, we'd have to go back to the board for any other action like this. So, just a one-time deal. But maybe you can clarify the second
So
question.
when it mentions there'll be no permanent sale of state water
Yeah,
until the master plan comes out. And
Yeah.
I'm wondering why the master plan is even in there, if there's not some very specific nexus that it's going to allow that sale.
yeah. So I think you're referring to the 2003 policies on the use of the excess allocation. The best answer I could give you, best answer I could give you is that's kind of an artifact from at the time at which those policies were developed. And right now, we're actually working with the subcontractors and district staff to go to the board. Hopefully we'll get there in December to look at board policy on priorities of use and criteria for using state water. And we'll have some draft policies that we'd like to propose to update what is existing policy that deals with both priorities and criteria, but also use of the surplus water for permanently making that available to others. There are a lot of policy questions up ahead. And as far as the master water report, our master water plan, that's it. Yeah, I think that maybe someone else can help me here, but I think essentially in 2012, we came out with the master water report, which Brendan's working on an update for. That basically the water plan became the water report?
Yeah,
Yeah, maybe you can say a couple words on.
I think
Does that mean that the plans kind of already come on based on this reference here?
I would say yes, but I think that go out on a little limb here, that in the past, there was actual like forward planning, and now we're doing more reporting on conditions because, water is managed so individually. The district isn't, planning for everyone in that sense. So I think Wes calling it an artifact in the 2003 policy is probably a good way to describe it. Yeah, that's how I respond.
Way in the back.
Ed, right?
I
Yeah,
have
yeah.
a lot of trouble finding out what the benefit is. The benefit, I think, to the west side is obvious, they get water. The benefit to the county is money. I find in here that the county will invoice the west side district for the transferred water. But I don't see, once they're invoiced, where it's being paid to, where it's going. Is the money going into the general fund? Is it going into a sub-budget item in the county's general fund? Where does the money go?
Yeah, good questions. In the staff report, I kind of breeze by it. The cost recovery revenues that would be for unused water that the subcontractors have contracted for the table A water, that benefit would go back to the subcontractors as a credit. For the district, the revenues would go back to the state water tax fund. Consistent with recent action to move water out of the district zone, what we call the zone general fund, back to the tax fund that is specifically set up for
So
the
they
state
go to
water.
the tax collector?
No.
It's not to the tax collectors, for the flood control district. And we have a special fund that is set up it's like a holding tank for the taxes received to ensure that the district can meet its obligation to DWR on any cost obligation we have under our state water contract.
I sure would like to see where that is in the budget.
Okay,
Maybe you could note that to us.
And when you say where that is, what,
Well, if your budget has incoming money and outgoing money.
Mhm.
This is incoming money. Where does it land when it comes in? Sometimes it ends up in the general fund, which means I can do almost anything with it. Sometimes it goes to the school district and they've got something specific to do. Where does this money go?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, it's, anything we can do to help clarify on that, we'll look to do that. There are pretty strict guidelines on what those funds can be used for. We're not, for instance, like we can't use those funds to go build a water bank in the Paso Basin. We can't use those funds for that. Those are they're not district discretionary funds. They're funds that can be used to pay DWR charges that come on our annual statement of charges. Katie, or do you have anything to add to that?
I was gonna say that these two funds are included in the special district's budget, but this sale was not anticipated when we compiled the budget, so it's an action that's outside of that budget process. But those funds will be received in these two funds and nowhere else, not to the general.
Thank you. Okay, Christine.
Yeah, I just want to display some ignorance here, but I wonder if we have excess water from the state water project, if we have lines that bring water from there to our county, is there not some way we can store our excess water in Nassau until we want to use it and then make sure that everyone has a full allocation when there's less water?
It's chlorinated. It's colonial pass.
Gotcha. Yes, okay.
Yeah,
there you
dump
go.
it in.
And
Thank
it's
you.
not
Yes.
physically connected to NASI either.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So Wes and the staff are seeking our endorsement of the policy, inclusion of the water transfer. So if there's been enough discussion, I'll entertain a motion along those lines. Does anybody would wish to make it? Right. And I normally as chair don't.
Well, I move that we,
Okay.
put a proposal to recommend to the board the sale and transfer of this water to willing buyers.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay, any discussion on the motion? You want to do a voice vote?
I'll do a roll call.
Oh, Christine, go right ahead.
If you didn't include that it's a temporary, one time. Might make sure that that's perhaps to be in the motion.
Yes.
Okay. Apply to this sale.
Yes.
All right.
I'll do a roll call.
Okay, we'll do a roll call then. Oh, yes, go ahead, Ray.
I'm confused. The end use with this chlorinated water, please tell me again where it's going, because I missed the very beginning of your talk.
That's okay,
A
yeah.
little bit concerned about that right now.
Okay. So the state water that the district brings into the county is treated at a water treatment plant just east of Shandon, at a facility called the Colonial Pass Water Treatment Plant. And then it's delivered to our 11 subcontractors here within the district for their municipal purposes. So up until that point, it's all raw water, untreated. So within the San Joaquin Valley where this water transfer would be delivered, it would be untreated water.
Okay, that's what that confused me. Okay, thank you so much.
Good clarification.
Mhm. Yep.
All right, any other discussion on the motion before we do a vote? Okay, I don't see any hands. All right, why don't you
Yeah.
call the roll?
District 4,
Aye.
District 5, Alan,
Yes.
John Winstead, Ag at Large,
Yes.
Mary Van Ryn, Ag at Large,
Up on this one, yes.
okay. Development at Large, Tim,
Yes.
Environmental, Christine,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Coastal San Luis RCD, Dominic?
Yes.
Upper Salinas, Las Tawas RCD, Tom? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, okay. Atascadero Mutual? Thank you, Jamie. County Farm Bureau, Steve?
Yes.
Golden State Water, Matt?
Yes.
Thank you. Shannon San Juan, right?
Yes.
Thank you. City of Arroyo Grande, Jim?
Yeah.
Thank you. City of Grover Beach?
Yes.
Thanks, Clint. City of Morro Bay, Laurel?
Yes.
Thank you, I saw you coming. City of Pismo Beach, Marcia?
Yeah.
And I saw Andy leave. Los Osos CSD? huh?
Yes.
Napomo CSD, Ed?
Yes.
Oceano CSD, Eileen? And San Miguel CSD, Kelly?
Yes.
All right, did I miss any members? I think I got it. All right,
All right, thank
Thank
you. We have one last item on the agenda. That's public comment for items not on the agenda. Anybody have anything? Oh, Greg?
I'll just say one thing about the National pipeline, and I don't know if people understand. So there's been a few repairs on the National pipeline that have reduced capacity by just over 3,900 acre feet of water. It can't be delivered. And there's a repair that's being done. It's a temporary repair, so they can do a permanent repair that's going to take a little while. So water can't get to the city of San Luis until the temporary repair is repaired. And then sometime they'll do the permanent repair. So that water has no carryover. So they either use it or lose it. So if you look at the last, there's been at least 10,000 acre feet of Nazi water that could have been put to beneficial use in the basin that has not been used in the last 7 years. There's 70,000 acre feet of water right there. So we have supplemental water. It's not being, in my view, properly managed to be used because of the cost. ASO has an opportunity to use 6,488, and they build a treatment plant that could use 2,688, and they regularly only use 1,000 to 1,100. So until such time that the supplemental water is being put to beneficial use, same with the county and Shandon. They haven't used the turnout for the last 4 years. So, and I would tell people, go visit the turnout, set up an appointment, go up to Colonial Pass, get a tour of the treatment plant. I did it last year. It's pretty educational. It's a cool thing to see. And you can understand, they're trying to do a project in the Paso Basin thinking they're going to buy 500 acre feet of treated state water, build a turnout, and then a dechlorination plant to stick it in the river where there's already water. So there you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Okay. All right. We're done. I'll adjourn the meeting. Everyone have a good 4th of July, Labor Day, and we'll see you in September.
Thank you, everyone. Feel free to reach out if you have any other follow-up questions. I'd be happy to take the time to talk. Thanks, everyone.